Hello everybody, again from the Drakensberg. This evening I'm actually at Champagne Castle Hotel, having a relaxing few days with my wife and enjoying all this area has to offer, but I have something much more exciting in store tomorrow morning. I'm planning to get up at crazy o'clock, 2:30 in the morning, to hike up this ridge here to get a photo of that mountain there. So a little bit too early maybe, but it's a 5 a.m. sunrise. I have 500 meters of elevation gain and about 4.5 kilometers of walking to do. And the pass here can be pretty variable, so I'm going to try and go as fast as I can, and if I turn up early then all the better, because the early morning glows can be really incredible in the Drakensberg. But I think more likely I'm going to end up running behind time and maybe battling cloud that's emerging around the peaks and all other things that are likely to go wrong when you come up with a harebrained plan like this. So stay tuned, you're going to see some pretty rough and ready videoing as I hike up the mountain in the dark with my headlight on, so nothing much to see in terms of B-roll, but hopefully there'll be some really good photography when it gets to sunrise. I was up at 2:30 and hiking by 2:45, which I think is the earliest I've ever started a hike, but I had 4 hours of good sleep and I was feeling pretty great, to be honest. I'd worked hard on my fitness prior to coming out to the Drakensberg, and then by this point I'd had almost 2 weeks worth of hiking, so I'd acclimatized and I was really feeling very good. So I made quick time up the trails, albeit recording the video pretty haphazardly, as you can see, and I was soon up on the ridge on the more open ground, and I was glad I was ahead of time because the light came on pretty quickly, as you're going to see. Believe it or not, this is the main trail, pretty overgrown. I guess people who stay in hotels don't do so much hiking. I'm ahead of time at the moment, which is great because you can see that the Drakensberg dawns start very early indeed. This is looking towards sunrise, more than an hour before the sun's actually going to crest the horizon, so glad to be up here in plenty of time. Right, the last bit of distance now, but I've actually seen some low hills in front of me that I didn't see on the map, because the map is fairly low resolution in terms of its contours, which probably means I'm going to have to dash up a hill as well. The colour is coming fast. I think I'm going to head up this little hill now, and it might actually look big because it's a silhouette here, but it's I don't know, 40 metres, so I'm going to dash up there. Right, I am stretching the clock now. So I got to the top of that hill, and of course it's a ridge. And I think the further I can get along this ridge, the better my view is going to be, because another ridge then comes in, maybe you can see it there, that leads towards the mountain. So desperately trying to come up with the best composition I can in the half light here. Okay, this is looking good. And you can now see from the video that I should be shooting right now, but I'm hoping as I get close to this edge here, I'm just going to have some slightly more sculpted landforms beneath me, and it's not just going to be grass and mountains. This is looking good. Oh yes, this is going to work very nicely. Look at that. Right, so I'm going to do my composition bit right now, and sorry that this is going out of focus, but I'm only recording this once. Okay, there we go, back sharp again, and I think I want to be roughly here with this little edge of the cliff just coming into frame here, and maybe a little bit closer, something over here, and then maybe a panorama. So I'm just making use of this bottom right corner here. Get as high as I can. I'd love this to be slightly more diagonal in the foreground, but it isn't. So I'm going to start shooting now, because the colour is just to die for. So this was the result of that 2:30 a.m. start, and what a spectacular mountain or collection of mountains this is in the Drakensberg, with perfect sculpting light really bringing a lot of form to the mountain there. And that's one of the reasons why I don't shoot as much as I used to now into the light, because quite often I prefer that side lighting giving form to the landscape, and it couldn't really have been more ideal here. It's interesting comparing the video to the colours that you see in this image, because this image is actually more accurate than the video, and it's less red, which maybe is a bit of a shame, because it would have been nice if it was even redder. But one reason that I do struggle with this image is that I took an even better image, which I really loved, which I completely messed up. And you can see it here, this wide panorama incorporating the moon and the cathedral ridge on the right hand side. But the left-hand side of the image has a lot of motion blur. In fact, it's 60 pixels of blur I measured it at, and it's completely unrecoverable at this point. I cannot use this left frame, so it was 3 horizontal frames to form that panorama, and I just didn't check them. And that's a lesson really to anybody, because it is, of course, easy to make mistakes, particularly when you're tired. And no doubt that contributed to my error here, but it's just so frustrating, because as much as I like that first frame, the panorama is undoubtedly a better image. But there you go, next time. Okay, so again, this is going to have to be a quick one, because obviously the light's changing very fast. The sun just comes straight up in the Drakensberg. I'm pretty happy with the shots that I've already got. I've got to say, it was well worth coming up here. But now that the light is changing very quickly, I'm actually just going to run around and see if I can improve upon this foreground that I found. So I'm going to dash behind me and see what those hills look like, and give that a go. Okay, I didn't have to run too far, because this to me is a much stronger foreground, so I'm going to settle now and just shoot here. So the foreground certainly is better here, in the sense that it's more consistent and more diagonal, so it's more dynamic and it draws you into the image that little bit more. But the light isn't anything like as good as in that first frame, and I think this is taken just over 5 minutes later, so you can see just how fast the light is changing, even though we're still a fair way off sunrise, maybe 20 minutes before sunrise. But more than that, the conifers on the hillside opposite, they just feel a bit more prominent in this image. And conifers are an invasive species in the Drakensberg, and I really don't like to see them, to be honest. It feels like man's interference with nature, particularly when they're growing this high. So it's probably that first image that I prefer slightly. The light isn't quite what it was a second ago. Sunrise isn't for another 15 minutes, but you can see that the light, whilst lovely and soft and directional, it doesn't have that rich red colour that I was working with earlier. So it may be that I already have my best shots, but of course I'm going to stay until sunrise and see what that brings. You can see there's some rather lovely hills over there as well, but no doubt that the star of the show is the mountain over here. What a peak that is. That's Catkin Peak in the centre. Champagne Castle is the flat-topped mountain just to the left of it, and the Sturkhorn just to the right. So really pleased to be photographing this mountain range, which I've never photographed before, in such lovely conditions. With such clear air in the Drakensberg, I knew that after this short period of fairly greyish light, I was going to have more colour when the sun actually broke the horizon. And again, it's sculpting the mountain beautifully here, making a nice colour contrast between the orange of the mountain and the green of the foreground there. And the foreground's fairly non-committal, but I think also fairly effective. It's this sort of scattered consistency idea with these tufts of grass. Maybe that tuft of grass at the bottom of the frame is a little bit too strong, but I think that's being quite picky. And then the sun got a little bit higher, and of course the tufts of grass caught the sunlight, and that makes them a bit more of a feature, and also creates this green-blue contrast that's so symptomatic of summer that so many photographers have no interest in whatsoever, but I love myself. And you'll notice actually this band of green at the base of the mountain there. That's actually due to fire breaks that stop fires on the grassland from just spreading all the way up the mountain. And obviously between different years, different areas will burn, and that affects the fertility of the soil and hence the colour and species of grass that are up there. So that's what causes that band, which you can see in all of my photos, but I guess that's part of the landscape. And then I was hot-footing it back down the mountain to beat Emily to getting out of bed so that we could go to breakfast together. But I did photograph this protea tree on the way down with these lovely pops of pink colour. So this one's definitely going to drop into my portfolio. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do give me a like and a comment if you've got anything to add, and please do subscribe. This is the last of my Drakensberg videos from last year actually, but I am just about to head out to the Drakensberg again, so there will be more Drakensberg content from me hopefully when I get back sometime in April.